could become harder to get. That Loblaw says it's pulling.
Called Death Wish because it contains
200% more caffeine.
Tonight, 10 of America's biggest coffee brands go on trial, judged on their own recalls, their own court files, and their own labels. At least one of them is in your kitchen right now. The brand every expose tells you to trust is hiding a file none of them ever pulled. And the villain they warn you about owns the clean coffee they tell you to run to instead. The front of the pack sells you a story. The receipt tells the truth. So tonight, we flip everything. And if receipts are what you came for, subscribe right now. Brand number 10, International Delight Iced Coffee. You've seen this bottle 1,000 times. It sits in the fridge case next to the real cold brew and promises you the coffee house without the line. Flip it over. 1 cup carries 23 grams of sugar, and nobody drinks 1 cup. The big 64-ounce jug holds 8 servings. Do the math. That's 184 grams of sugar in a single bottle. And picture what that jug really is. 4.5 cans of Coca-Cola poured into 1 bottle, wearing a coffee label. No parent alive would line those cans up on the breakfast table, but pour the same sugar into something called coffee, and suddenly it's normal. Now imagine handing that to your kid every morning before school because, hey, it's just coffee. Their blood sugar rockets. Their insulin slams it back down. By second period, they're foggy, crashing, and begging for more. You didn't buy them coffee. You bought them a sugar habit with a caffeine chaser. And play that forward a few years because this is how it actually happens. Nobody develops type 2 diabetes from 1 bottle. They develop it from a decade of mornings exactly like this one. A body worn down, 1 sugar spike at a time, until the insulin stops working. The scary part isn't the single bottle. It's that it never once feels like the problem, right up until the day a doctor tells you it was. And read the ingredients. Cold brew coffee, then skim milk, then sugar, then corn syrup. That's sugar twice, under 2 names. The same company sells a zero sugar version 1 shelf over, so the sugar was always a choice. That company is Danone. The yogurt people. This isn't coffee, it's a milkshake with a commute. On the receipt, sugar listed twice, 184 grams a jug, and a zero sugar twin that proves it. Number 9 turned a real recall into a horror movie. Brand number 9, Death Wish Coffee. The skull, the name, the world's strongest coffee, sold to you as a personality. Here's a real story. In 2017, a healthy 16-year-old boy in South Carolina drank a large soda, a latte, and an energy drink over about 2 hours. No heart condition, no warning. His heart fell into an arrhythmia it couldn't climb out of, and he collapsed and died in a school. The coroner called it a caffeine-induced cardiac event. Now look at 1 can of Death Wish. Consumer Reports measured 472 milligrams of caffeine in a single 8-ounce cup. That's more caffeine than the drinks that killed that boy, in less liquid, faster. The safe daily ceiling for an adult is 400 milligrams. For a whole day, this is 1 cup, 6 Red Bulls in a single mug. And here's what that much caffeine actually does inside you. It floods your system faster than your body can clear it. Your heart rate climbs, your blood pressure spikes. And in the wrong person, it can knock the heart's rhythm clean out of sync. Doctors call that an arrhythmia. And once a heart starts racing in the wrong pattern, it can't always find its way back. That isn't a rare freak thing that only happens to someone else. That is exactly what the coroner said happened to that 16-year-old boy. Now imagine your teenager finds it in the cupboard and downs it before a workout, heart already pounding, thinking it's just strong coffee. That is the exact scenario that ends with a parent getting a phone call. This is not a personality, it's a stimulant that can find a weakness in your heart you didn't know you had. The famous video opens on a Death Wish recall with no date and no reason. So here's the real one. September 21st, 2017, they pulled their nitro cans because the process could grow botulism toxin. And botulism is a nightmare. Gram for gram, it's one of the deadliest substances on Earth. And the way it kills you is genuinely horrifying. It doesn't smell wrong, it doesn't taste wrong, there's nothing to warn you. It works quietly, starting with blurred vision and drooping eyelids, then sliding down through your body 1 muscle group at a time. Eventually, it reaches your diaphragm, the single muscle that drives every breath you take. And when that muscle stops answering, you stop breathing while your mind is still perfectly awake to know it. That's the risk hiding in a badly sealed can. Nobody was hurt this time and they fixed it, and that part is honest. But sealed, low-acid cans keep failing across this whole industry. In 2024, a single packing company recalled canned coffee sold under more than 300 different brand names for that exact botulism risk. On the receipt, a dated botulism recall and a full day's caffeine in one mug. Number 8 didn't ship too much of anything. It shipped glass. Brand number 8, Clover Valley and the whole value shelf. That $3 jar of instant coffee in your cupboard right now? Last August, jars exactly like it were recalled across 48 states. The reason? Glass. Actual glass. In the coffee. In homes like yours. Dollar General has more stores than McDonald's, so that recall map was basically the whole country. The federal notice spells out what swallowed glass does. It cuts your mouth. It cuts your throat. It can tear through your intestine from the inside. And nobody told you. No press conference, no apology ad. A quiet notice on a government website while the jars kept selling off the shelf. Now the second file, and this one is quieter but meaner. In March 2025, a coffee labeled decaf was recalled because it was secretly full caffeine. Think about who actually reaches for decaf. The pregnant woman protecting the baby she's carrying. The heart patient whose cardiologist drew a hard line. The man who was told one more real coffee could put him back on a hospital ward. These are people avoiding caffeine on medical orders, and a mislabeled can hands them the exact dose they were told could hurt them. Now imagine the worst version of that, the one that never makes the news. The person for whom that hidden caffeine wasn't an inconvenience, but the one small push their heart couldn't take. A label got it wrong, someone paid for it, and nobody ever connected the two. And here's the tell on the whole value shelf. The scare videos will tell you cheap instant dissolves too fast because it's chemical dust. Wrong. Instant is just brewed coffee with the water removed, so dissolving fast is the point. The real problem was never a magic trick in a mug. It was a printed federal recall nobody amplified. On the receipt, glass in 48 states, and caffeine hiding inside the decaf. Quick favor while that lands. That glass recall got a fraction of the attention the fake mold panic got. So hit the like button, because it tells YouTube to push the real story over the invented one. Number 7 has been making the same promise since 1892, and a court finally made it show the math. Brand number 7, Maxwell House. Good to the last drop. Your grandmother had this blue tin on her counter. Kraft Heinz owns it now. Flip it over and try to find one real fact. No origin, no roast date, no bean variety. 130 years of your family's trust, and the label tells you nothing. Then there's the decaf, and this is where it gets ugly. Maxwell House decaf was named in testing and a lawsuit over methylene chloride. Here is what that chemical actually is. The EPA banned methylene chloride from consumer paint strippers because it was killing people. Not over decades, in minutes. Workers using it to strip a bathtub in a poorly ventilated room would breathe the fumes. The chemical would turn to carbon monoxide inside their blood, and they would lose consciousness and die right there on the job. Dozens of documented deaths. The government decided it was too dangerous to let you buy it to strip paint with, and it is still legal to use it to strip the caffeine out of your decaf. The levels are low, below the federal limit, and it's never printed on the tin. But think about what you're being asked to accept. A chemical too lethal for a hardware store, quietly used on the coffee marketed to the most vulnerable people in the aisle. The water-processed decaf that skips the solvent sits on the same shelf, says so on the front, and costs about the same. One tin answers the question. The other sells you a jingle. On the receipt, a servings lawsuit and a paint stripper solvent the label never mentions. And hold on to that phrase, paint stripper, because before this countdown ends, it comes back for the one brand every single one of these videos tells you to trust. Number 6 printed its correction by court order. Brand number 6, K-Cups and the Keurig machine. The scare says K-Cups blast microplastics straight into your liver with every cup. Here's the honest version, and the gray area is real. Plastic does shed tiny particles into hot liquid. 3 separate studies found them. And imagine the worst case for a second, a daily habit, 10 years deep, quietly loading particles into a body that can't flush them out. That thought is genuinely unsettling. But every one of those studies ends the same way, admitting nobody yet knows what it actually does to you. Real question. Unproven answer. That's the honest line the scare channels erase so they can sell you certainty. Hold that. Here's what is proven. In 2024, the SEC fined Keurig $1.5 million because Keurig told investors its pods could be recycled while leaving out that America's two biggest recyclers wouldn't take them. A second lawsuit over that same word cost $10 million more, and the court forced a confession onto the box. Check locally, not recycled in many communities. Go read the side of the box next to your machine right now. There is a court-ordered confession sitting in your kitchen, and you probably never noticed. It gets worse. In 2014, Keurig recalled 6.6 million brewers after the machine sprayed scalding water and hot grounds onto about 90 people. Now picture where that machine actually lives. On a low kitchen counter, at the exact height of a curious toddler, reaching up to see what the grown-ups keep pressing. 90 people were already burned before they pulled 6.5 million of these back. That's not a story about coffee. That's a story about a product that hurt people in their own kitchens. On the receipt, an SEC penalty, a $10 million settlement, a printed confession, and 6 million scalding machines. Number 5 is the biggest lie in the aisle. And it isn't a chemical. It's the logo itself. Brand number 5. The famous names that don't make their own coffee. Go flip a grocery store bag of Dunkin. The logo says Dunkin. The fine print says J.M. Smucker, the Folgers company. The Starbucks bag beside it, made by Nestle since 2018. Nescafé lives in that same house. You walked in loyal to a name, and a completely different corporation took your money and roasted your beans. Now, here's the scare they sell you on these names, and here is how wide the truth actually is. The famous video says, Nescafé hides aflatoxin, and it wants you to panic. So let me tell you what aflatoxin genuinely does, because it's real, and it's frightening. It's one of the most powerful natural carcinogens known to science, sitting in the same danger class as asbestos. In high chronic doses, it scars and destroys the human liver and drives liver cancer. And it doesn't need decades. In parts of the world with no food regulation, contaminated grain has poisoned entire villages at once, and people have died within days, their livers simply shutting down. That is not a scare I wrote. That is a real toxin with a real body count. Now the part the scare video buries, that horror happens with unregulated grain and nuts, not with American coffee. Roasting destroys up to 99% of it. Hard legal limits exist, and the specific Nescafé recalls that video describes do not exist in any record I can find, in a brand sold in 180 countries. So sit in that gap for a second. The toxin is nightmare fuel and completely real. The claim that it's in your coffee is invented. That gap between a real horror and a fake application of it is the entire business model of the channels scaring you. On the receipt, a licensing deception you can read in the fine print, and a toxin scare that falls apart the moment you pull the file. Number 4 is the biggest fraud in this video, $41 million, and the scare channels never touched it. Brand number 4, every bag that says Kona. The biggest heist in American coffee wasn't a poison, it was a word. Hawaii grows about 2.7 million pounds of real Kona a year. American shelves sell more than 20 million pounds labeled Kona. That's 7 times more paradise than the mountain can physically produce. Somebody is lying, at scale, to your face. So, in 2019, the Kona farmers sued nearly everyone. Costco, Walmart, Kroger, Amazon, Safeway, and the roasters behind the bags. And they didn't bring a hunch, they brought chemistry, testing the beans' isotopes against real Kona. You can fake a label, you cannot fake geology. One by one, they all settled. 12 million from one retail chain, 7.7 million from a single roaster, more than $41 million in total paid to the farmers. Settlements aren't admissions, and no court ruled on the merits, we always say that. But 24 companies looked at the lab data and chose to write checks instead of facing a jury. You decide what that means. And picture the actual farmer on that mountain. growing the real thing by hand on land his family has worked for generations, watching mystery beans from who knows where wear the name of his home in every supermarket in the country. Every fake bag sold is a sale he never made, at a price his real coffee could never match, because you can't hand farm a volcano as cheaply as you can print a lie on a label. That's who got robbed, quietly, for years. Under the old law, a Kona blend could be 10% Kona. You paid paradise prices for 10% paradise, and it was completely legal until they rewrote it. And the new 51% floor doesn't even start until 2027, so tonight, a 10% blend is still sitting on the shelf, legal and proud. So flip that bag right now. Find the word blend. Find the percentage. The mountain is scenery. The tiny number is the truth. On the receipt, 20 million pounds from a mountain that grows 3, and $41 million in settlements. Halfway, one sentence. A $41 million fraud with a federal docket. And the toxin channel skipped it because a place name doesn't scare you. So subscribe, because that is the whole difference between them and us. Number 3 sells more coffee than anyone in America and got sued over the front of its can. Brand number 3, Folgers. The best-selling ground coffee in the country, which is exactly why the front deserves a hard look. It says makes up to 240 cups. In a federal case called In Re Folgers, customers allege that following the can's own directions gets you nowhere near that number. A class was certified in 2024, then reversed on appeal last November. A live case that got weaker, not a win, and I'll keep it precise. But you just met this exact trick at number 7 with Maxwell House. 2 legacy cans, 1 inflated promise. Your grandparents' whole shelf. Flip the can for what's missing. Mountain grown is a feeling, not a place, no origin, no roast date. It promises 240 cups and won't risk printing a single date. Think about what that means. The number 1 coffee in America, in your parents' cupboard right now, tells you less about what's inside it than a candy bar does. Not because it can't, because it decided you wouldn't ask. On the receipt, a federal servings case and a can that answers nothing. Hold the owner's name because number 2 makes it awkward. Brand number 2, Café Bustelo. The yellow can. Cuban-style espresso since 1928, and the one brand every scare video crowns as the honest hero. And on the regular can, that's close to fair. It's basically just coffee, it's cheap, and it's good. I'll say it plainly because it's true. But none of them pulled the file. I did. Bustelo's decaf tested in the highest tier for methylene chloride, that same paint stripper solvent, and got named in the same lawsuit as the others. Here's the part that should stop you cold. Folgers decaf, the brand they call a villain, tested clean. Bustelo's, the brand they told you to trust, didn't. They picked a hero and never once checked its file. Now the punchline. Café Bustelo and Folgers are the same company. J.M. Smucker owns the villain at 3, the hero at 2, and the Dunkin bags from 5. One bank account, wearing every mask in the aisle. Brands aren't honest or dishonest, products are. On the receipt, a solvent lawsuit nobody mentions, and a hero that shares a parent with the villain. The verdict is mixed, so love the regular can and treat the decaf like a file. And if that yellow can is family in your kitchen, defend it in the comments right now. I'll be honest, the regular can has earned the defense. The decaf hasn't. Number 1 is the villain that never existed. Brand number 1, Lavazza. The premium Italian tin, cast by the scare genre as the toxic, rich villain, full of ochratoxin and hidden European poison. So I pulled the file. It's empty. No lab, no study, no agency action. Nothing. Here is where that fear was born. 10 years ago, a supplement salesman convinced America its coffee was secretly full of mold, named No Lab, and built a $20 a bag empire selling the cure. The Lavazza story is that same lie in an Italian accent. Europe polices this stuff with hard limits and real audits. A premium brand actually failing those tests would be recalled in public, not whispered about on YouTube. What Lavazza's record does hold is one word. In 2025, Britain's ad regulator banned a Lavazza ad for calling its capsules compostable when they only break down in an industrial facility, not your garden. A green word on the front, outrunning the truth on the back. And here's the twist that ends the whole night. Lavazza owns Kicking Horse, the roast-dated, clean-labeled bag these same videos beg you to buy instead. The brand they call Poison is the parent of the brand they call the Cure. The fear eats itself, and the people selling it never checked who signs the checks. On the receipt, an invented toxin, a banned green claim, and the clean heroes sitting inside the villain's own company. One tap before the winners. Every verdict tonight came with a docket, a recall, or a label you can flip yourself. If nobody's fact-checked this genre for you before, hit the thumbs up. It decides who sees this next. 4 brands pass, counting down. Number 4, Kicking Horse. Whole bean, organic, fair trade, and the bag prints origin, certifications, and a roast date. Fresh coffee has a birthday and isn't shy about it. And yes, Lavazza owns it. The villain makes the clean pick. That's tonight's whole lesson on one label. Number 3, any certified Swiss water decaf. Swiss water, water process, CO2 process. The caffeine left without an industrial solvent. A bag that only says decaf probably used methylene chloride, legal and undisclosed, with an FDA petition still pending. Even Pete's has announced a move to water processing. Take the bag that answers the question. Number 2, origin with a badge. Café de Colombia carries a protected origin seal, the first product outside Europe ever granted one, and real Kona estates certify the same way. A seal means a government checked the front, so you don't have to trust a painting. It's last week's butter lesson again. An auditor, not an artist. Costs more. It's the Sunday bag. Number 1, the honest, cheap bag. Ingredient list, one word, coffee. Roast date, printed. Check the per ounce price while you're there, because premium bags love shrinking to 12 ounces and betting you won't divide. 2 footnotes, both real. Chicory isn't a scam. Café de Monde prints it on the front, and disclosure is the opposite of fraud. And a 2018 lab study found about 1 in 10 bags labeled 100% Arabica carrying cheaper Robusta, which is exactly why the rule stays 3 seconds long. Flip it. Find the 2 answers. Done. The best coffee in the aisle might be the cheapest one on the shelf, and you never needed the $20 cure. 60 seconds of scare audit. Mold. Capped in Europe at 3 micrograms a kilo. Tightened again in 2023, mostly destroyed in the roast, and a minor player next to grains and dried fruit. Cancer. Acrylamide forms in anything roasted. Toast, fries, every coffee bean ever. The state that ordered the warning killed it with its own science. And coffee is off the World Cancer Agency's possible list. Microplastics. Particles real, harm unproven, every study says so. Decaf. Below the limits, petition pending, and Swiss water exists. The $20 clean coffee? 65% more antioxidants is a marketing claim with no independent proof I can find. Sold by the same corner of the internet that invented the mold. Manufacture the fear, sell the antidote. Great business, not a fact. Keep the habit, flip it. Where, when, what? 3 answers means a company standing behind its coffee. 3 blanks means the front is doing all the talking. 10 brands went in, most didn't come out. Every docket, recall, and study from tonight is numbered in the description, so pull any file yourself. You now know exactly what Kona Blend, Decaf, and Clean are worth, so flip a bag for somebody who doesn't know yet. And subscribe before you go.